How's it going, guys? We are here for this series of videos where I'm going to be explaining you basically post flop. So we're gonna go spot for spot, hand for hand, look at sims, try to figure out what's going on. It was very hard for me in the beginning for like a few years to try to go through sims and like really try to see what's happening. So I'm here to take you by the hand, literally, and bring you to an understanding of these spots that is way better than what you're understanding right now, which is probably, I don't want to say anything, but probably not a lot. Is that true or not? Leave a comment, okay? So we're going to go for the most canonical spots, which are SRP in position. We're going to go for the 3-bet spots, for the 4-bet spots, and then DTO. We might also use like our own sims for these exercises, but DTOs are really, really good sims. So, and I like the interface more than PIOs, so it's very, very good for us to study with this tool. So essentially, that's going to be it for this series. Hopefully, I'm going to be bringing you to like a whole new level at the end of this whole post-flop chapter, and with all the explanations, you'll understand way more about post-flop. So we're going to go for SRP. We're going to go for the first spot, which is low jack versus big blind. I have played way more hands in these spots, but they got reset because they got re-uploaded. So we have, as you can see, I have like a collection of flops that I wrote down what the bet size was, and the so I play like all of these and like repeatedly also because there's like 200 solutions, so these flops repeat. So yeah, I ignore the 2 hands played, whatever. Anyways, so the main idea is that we got study conclusions. You have both these files in the course, by the way, and you have these study conclusions where you see SRP, low jack, hijack versus big blind, which is also here. Hijack has on average a few percentage lower betting range. So if we look at the spot, first of all, you'll have to understand what the ranges are. So if you do have DTO, if not, you can look here essentially with me. So the ranges are going to be tighter, obviously tight for low jack. Low jack opens about 18, maybe like 20%. This is slightly wider because these ranges are calculated for 500 zoom, but it works very, very well. So these sims work very, very well on like Nolman 50, Nolman 25. Can guarantee, first of all. Second of all, from own experience. Second of all, there's 2 differences. So low jack is going to be wider. So 5s, 4s, 3s, and deuces get open like a little bit wider. First of all, because they use, so DTO doesn't use like 3-bet only in position. They have like a bit more calling, so that's why you get here. Second of all, because of the rake. And third, the thing is that, the big blind range is also slightly wider, but this range is slightly also wider. So it works kind of the same in a sense. If there's more rake, both of them would be tighter. Do you understand what I mean? If there's less rake, like this is 5%, 0.6 blinds cap, the ranges are slightly wider, but both of them. So that's why they work in the same way. Okay. So we have any suited ace, except for ace 2 suited, that is like 0.5. I think in our sims, any suited ace opens early position. We have ace 10 off plus, king 10 off, and queen jack are mixing. Mostly just, it stops at king 10 off, and queen jack is like 0.1. In these ranges, you have 10-9 suited is full. Suited 9s, king 8 suited plus. We have, in our early position, king 5 really likes to open, king 7 really likes to open, king 6. Because of like the blockers, so if you have a lot of people calling, then these hands will lose a little bit of EV. And it's like these lower pairs will obviously gain some EV because you flop sets and you just destroy. But king 7, king 6, king 5 suited, they get open because, first of all, as long as you maintain like the frequency, it's fine. Second of all, I recommend our course ranges to open, but post-flop will be mostly the same. So you'll see if you have PIO or GTO plus, You'll see it in the sims. They're the same. So essentially, and mostly it's the same idea. As long as you understand the ideas that are like underneath everything that is like post flop, it'll be absolutely perfect. You'll understand like, everything that you need to do, and then it's easy, pretty much. Right. So low jack, which is early position, and big blind. Big blind will be calling some suited one gappers and most suited two gappers. Some suited queens down to like queen six suited plus king five. Why is this important? So we know like the components of the range. Ace X is calling like ace 10, but king 10 is folding pretty much. So mostly just 0.1, 0.1, 0.3. Jacks is 3-betting. They're not actually folding. I hope you know that. King queen off is like 0.8. So this is 0.2 is 3-betting. So 20% 3-bet. And so on. So that's why like ace 8 is 0.7. The others are 3-bets. So this is mostly the calling range. Pairs from 10s and lower. You need to remember that because you'll understand more about like two Broadway card boards and stuff like that. Like 2 higher Broadway than 10 are just like ridiculously good for imposition. Also, what you need to know about DTO is that they use single size sims in a way that most other people don't actually use them. This is the best approach generally. So 1 size or 2 size sims. 2 size would be slightly harder to execute as a human, but we do have them. We do have them as let's say we do have them as provided in the course. It's still fine. You can learn from them. DTO has the different approach that they simmed the same sim with every flop size, so like let's say 1/3 and then a half pot or like a bigger size than overbet, and then they saw which one yields the best EV by comparing them, and then they use that sim in their gamification, and you can review that sim directly. So that's why I was able to extract these. So for example, these are like ace high boards, right? How do you read this? 30% range means you bet 30% the sizing for range, for like your whole range of cards. Why? We'll see in a second. We'll talk about it. Or when you see 70%, so you'll see that sizes are, so you can read it as like size and frequency pretty much. How do you read something like 70%, 50%? You bet 50% of the times. 70% as sizing with your average hand that wants to bet on this board. There might be hands on this board, for example, ace queen 3, if you think about it, that might want to bet less frequent, not the size. The size remains constant for your whole range. Only the frequency that you do it with changes, right? So that means that maybe with pocket kings, you know, on this board, maybe you just don't want to bet at all. Maybe there's hands that actually don't want to bet, which might be pocket kings with 70%. Might be king queen. Might be pocket jacks, something like that. Pocket jacks maybe just a sliver more because it needs slight protection from like a king, right? But something like pocket eights maybe would like to bet like more frequent, or like pocket deuces, right? Because it benefits from taking it down. Or something like 5-3 suited, although we don't have 5-3 suited in early position. I'm just giving an example where you have like 5 outs to 2 pair if you do get called, right? But also your hand desperately needs protection right now, because otherwise there's 2 overcards mostly that are coming. So that's how you read it. 30% almost range, you can simplify to just 30% range. Maybe just kings, you know, like you have kings, you check, like whatever. You check at like 80% or like whatever. So 30%, 50%, right? So the less the percent, so 30%, 30%, right? A lot of your range will want to bet, but at like a very low frequency, right? So you bet like low size, low frequency, pretty much. And so on and so forth. So you have these conclusions right here that say how to play all flops and 6-max hold'em optimally, right? So SRP, low jack, hijack versus big blind hijack, on average, few percentage lower betting range. So if I'm looking here and I'm seeing 30%, 30%, maybe for hijack I'm thinking 30%, 25%, or 70-80 turns into 70-70, or something like that. So that's okay. Feel free to use this file as crutches, by the way, when you're just starting out. You'll see there are some overbets, but they're usually rare, and they're usually on Ace-King X boards. Okay? Pretty easy. So there's no other kind of, or King-Queen X. These are very, very useful boards, very, very good for you, for your range. But yeah, pretty much. These are the study conclusions. You can see Ace +2 Broadway's Rainbow, like range 70%, right? 70% size for range. Ace +2 Broadway's S means flush draw, range 30%. Ace plus Broadway plus low card, so Ace King 9 or Ace Queen 3. 70% half the times or 30% very often to a range. So you can simplify to like small bet ranging game. But in The Sims, you will get the size that you need to bet. You'll need to figure out the frequency of your hand pretty much, or if you can bet or not. Ace 9X and lower, right? So there's no Broadways, just Ace 9X and lower. 30%, 50%. Is that true? Let's look at the situations that we have. It starts around here, and you can like see this pattern. Ace 9-7 with a flush draw, 30%, 50%. Ace 9 deuce, 30% more often. Why? First of all, I think it's because Big Blind has to call with a lot of trash, which means the wheel gut shots, which are 5 high and 4 high, pretty much. And then the same here, Ace 8-4, right? Has to call 6-7. He has like a lot of straight draws basically, and he has to call like trash a lot. That's kind of the whole idea. And also, the disparity between these cards is kind of big. So you'll see maybe on, let's see, A6-5, like returning to normal. Mono boards are something extremely different, okay? So they don't count towards the end result. But yeah, I think it's fine. Like 30%, 50%, as long as you can have that in your head, like remember it maybe, or have it somewhere, maybe like a cheat sheet that will help you. It's generally fine. Okay, all right. If TOS allows. Okay, cool. So this spot, we're gonna drill it a little bit. We're gonna talk about turns. We're gonna talk about rivers. So getting into it. Okay. Use crutches. So right now, 9-7-5. This is very interesting. You can look at 9 high. So So the way you do it is you go to like study conclusions. You look at SRP, low jack, high jack. You can do this. You can take this text and do it in like a PDF file or Excel file or like whatever you want, like a Word file and so on, and just have it for yourself, right? So 9XX rainbow, 70% bet size, 50% of times. 9XX suited, right? So flush draw. This doesn't mean mono. This means 2 of the same suit. 30%, 60%. All right. We got a straight on board. So this is kind of but with King 9 of diamonds, my thought process is we can also call a raise very easily, right? If I had something like 5-4, it would have been maybe a little bit different, But then 5-4, maybe you don't like kind of are like very mad when you get raised. It's kind of a raise 5-4, It's kind of like Maybe like Ace 5, you want to check back more often on this board. Something like Queen 7, which is put under like a lot of pressure if you get raised. But with a hand like King 9 with the backdoor diamonds, you're always calling a raise. So it's very, very simple. I think this is higher frequency. So if it's 30%, 60%, this hand might be higher frequency. Sometimes, by the way, disclaimer, I'm wrong. Because solutions sometimes surprise you. I'm not the ultimate wizard of Sims. Nobody is. Nobody knows this shit by heart or whatever. By the way, you have here like a randomizer. DTO just changed their decks. They're gonna have like this weekend. You can change like the non-4 card deck. You can hold it on practice. By the way, you have some dials here. I'll hide myself for a second. Practice means that the hand doesn't stop when you make a mistake, and I really recommend this. And also, sorry. Also, I do recommend having also the percentage of the pot, not only the big blinds, because it's just weird. You should know what percentage you're betting without having to like calculate the division, but also practice and classic. Practice means that when you make a mistake, it doesn't stop you. All right. So let's boogie. It doesn't stop you, just gives you like, oh, it's a wrong option. So let's see how did I do. Yes. So the frequency that we're betting our range is 52. The frequency that we're betting our exact hand, this king 9, is actually 90, right? You'll see the other king 9s being almost that frequency, right? So like 51 and frequency is 52, right? The other king 9s. Because they don't have backdoors, they're very vulnerable to like raise in a sense, but I think it boils down to with king 9 of diamonds, we just have a lot more equity. Cool. And we're also blocking like his floats so we can get blocking diamonds so we can get more value on turns. Because his range will be more call heavy. Right. So what happens on this board with you can start looking at hands, right? This is how you figure it out. How are spades doing, right? So ace jack without spades might just want to like full check because you win at showdown a lot. That's the idea. Ace jack with spades, 60%, just slightly more. How about a hand like, let's see it, ace 7? Sorry, 7's a pair. Let's look at some like ace 3. So ace 3 of spades is betting more often because it has less showdown value pretty much. Also ace 3, the other ace 3s are betting slightly below frequency because again, they don't really have showdown value. They benefit from a lot of folding, whereas something like ace queen won't actually bet here, right? Except for like ace queen diamonds. That can also call a raise, by the way, if you get raised on the flop. If it's not something absurd. Ace king will be betting sometimes. But mostly you'll see that it favors betting with a spade, right? Or it favors betting with the diamond because the diamond will, with like the king of diamonds will get you more folds pretty much. Because it blocks continues with like, I don't know, like king 10 of diamonds and stuff like that. So, or it blocks some heavy draws like king 6 of diamonds. Anyways, that's how you analyze the hands pretty much. So you can look at nines. It's like, okay, ace 9 is betting full almost. King 9, not that much. We saw that the other king 9s are going at frequency only king 9 of diamonds. Queen 9 is betting a bit more often. I think like queen 9 needs a bit more protection and doesn't share cards in a sense, whereas king 9, you check back and then your opponent will have like king 10, king queen, you know, stuff like that. With queen, I think the effect is slightly less. Jack 9 is betting less, 10 9 is betting less, and then 9-8 is, you can click this button to look at 9-8. It's mostly just C betting like 100% because it has like extra gut shot pretty much. And also it really benefits, so 9-8 really benefits from your opponent folding something like king 10 of hearts. Okay. Cool. So that's what we learned from this flop. And don't worry, we'll speed it up at some point, but I really want to make sure that you actually know essentially what I'm saying. And also you can look at, like, by clicking here, you can see, like, are there leads on this board? And the answer is fuck yeah, because this is a straight board, whereas Big Blind has full 6-8 suited, so it has 4 combos of nutted hands. If you look at it, you can also click Big Blind here and see the range. 6-8 suited, full combos, nutted hands. Also some 9-7s, right? Some 5-7s. Pocket 5s is full. You know, all these like sets are there. Now on low jack, you'll see that there is no 8-6, there is no 5-7, and there's barely, so there's less 5s than Big Blind has. This is 0.7, Big Blind has 1, so full. But the board is still pretty good for like C betting in moderation with a small size. And this hand, especially King 9 of diamonds, is especially very, very good for C betting very often for the reasons that we've already stated. So we can move on. King 8. First, you look at the flop, right? King 9. I think a paired board, you can also think about it this way, right? Which board is very advantageous for you? Which board is very advantageous for your opponent, right? Previous board was very, very advantageous for our opponent. This board is extremely advantageous for us because if you look at big blind, he 3-bets all his king queen suited. He 3-bets all his ace kings, kings and queens. Sorry, queens is kind of irrelevant in the spot, but also some nines, like 0.8, we have more nines. And then let's look at the king X's. He has some suited ones that we also have, but on the offsuit department, he kind of only has king queen off, king jack off, whereas we as low jack have all the ace kings, all the king queens, a lot of the king jack off, king 10 off, and so on. So we have, and also nines full. So we have an advantage here in very strong hands. That generally means, actually, on king high boards, in king high boards in general, in mostly when you're the one who's doing the pre-flop raising and he was calling, be it single raise pot, 3-bet pot, 4-bet pot, king high boards like to see small bet sizes and very wide. So you're kind of pushing equity. On king boards, you're kind of pushing equity in general. So I wouldn't be surprised if this were something like 30% size. It's like 33, but whatever, I say like 30. It's like small bet with a very high frequency, which is something like 80 to even a range. So we can look at it. We see, you also get to see what big blind folded, but if we look at it, it is literally just range small on like king 9. So when it's range small, you don't have to think about like hands and how they fare on the board. No, it's a board where it's just range small. You have any hand, you're in the hand, you open early position, big blind called, range small, any hand that you have, just bets 33%. That's it. And it's fine because you have way more equity, and especially equity realization versus big blind, which because you're in position. So you can check a lot of turns. What is DTO supposed to do in this spot, right? You can also look at that. You can also look at what is folding. I'm actually surprised that 4s is folding without the spade. Yeah, it's kind of. 5, 6s. The threshold is somewhere around 7s. And you can also see that you're folding some ace-x. So threshold is somewhere around pocket 6s, right? Without the continuation spade that can give you, like, that you can also continue versus barrels on a lot of turns and also is slightly more equity. Obviously 9 is never going to fold. Like never, ever, ever. You have some raises, right? With king 9 especially, which is kind of actually surprising to me because generally what I've seen in Sims and in is that full house, flop full house that blocks a king, but I guess there's a lot of draws on this board, which are like jack 10, queen 10, queen jack, and spade draws. So that's maybe why this is raising. So both that is blocking the trip, right? So king 9, or if turn was like a 6, then it would be king 6. Would actually be like very passive in a sense, right? Because you're blocking too much, so there's not much to get called by. So I see king queen is raising a little bit, king jack is raising a little bit, pocket 9 is definitely raising. In game, I think 9s I'd probably raise to like 100%. Cool. So, and there's some deuces that bluff raise a little bit. Anyways. And some, as like most of the bluff raises are just like low suited aces that have the flush draw. So it's pretty simple. Also some queen jacks here. Queen jack, jack 10, queen 10. Yeah. But rare. Okay. Mostly with the spade. And then a lot of, say, ace 3 of spades raising 70%. Ace deuce of spades, 74%. You know, ace 4 is like 40, 30, 54, 59. some 21 for ace 10 because ace 10 has a bit more showdown value, can actually get called. So that's about it. That's kind of how you look at these hands and try to figure out, what's happening and why. So if you don't know an answer, by the way, if you look at your opponent's range. So if you're looking at a perspective like this and you don't understand why, like something like say that you have it's like 6 is folding, right? Without the spade. It's because early position range is very strong, very king heavy. Like we looked at both the ranges, and low jack just has like all the ace kings and the king queen suited that are just absolutely ridiculously overpowered versus big blind that has none of those. So it's and also if you can look at it, like also king jack suited, king 10 suited, they 3-bet sometimes. So that's why this board favors you a lot, and that's why we bet range pretty much. Queen 9-8. This is a straight board, so we know that big blind will have like jack 10 suited. Barely will have jack 10 offsuit, very rarely, but jack 10 suited they will have, and also some other sets, right? We do have queens, they don't have queens. This is kind of like the thought process, but they have like also a lot of flush draws. Okay, we block some calls with the king of diamonds. We block some calls and raises with like the 10 of hearts. Now, this board, you can then look at the look at the results, and you can see, okay, this is a board where a straight is possible. Yeah, it's straight on board. And also you have queen plus 2 cards that are lower than a 9. This goes 30%, 70%. Right, so low bet size, high frequency. I think our hand is very, very good to be betting. Also can call a raise and also can get like a diamond on turn, can actually continue. So I think our hand is slightly high frequency. I think this board in particular would want to see bet less frequently, so like maybe 30%, 50% of the times. But our hand is definitely a very, very high frequency. So if we look at it, Queen 9-8, we're c-betting about 65%. So compared to the 30%, 70%, this is slightly lower because of the disfavor that we have vis-a-vis the straights that big blind can actually have. So, but our hand is very, very good. So you'll see like some other king 10s. So we have like them like kind of half. But in general, if you look at like king 10 without a diamond, it will be c-betting a lot less. For example, if you look at this one, for example, or this one, king 10 without a diamond will be c-betting a lot less frequently than king 10 with a diamond. Okay. I wish to see some turn spots. This is 10-3 deuce. You can then use the crutches. So you look at it from this perspective. So 10, 30%, 50% mostly. There's no straight on board. This rainbow is like 30% almost range, pretty much. Okay. This is a 10-3 deuce. I think the 3 and a deuce are kind of better for big blind than us, but king 10 also, I think it just bets here like 100%. You should be thinking about like getting value. I don't think a raise is very often used here. So if you like to re-raise, I don't think I don't realize what you try to 3-bet on this board. It's very, very hard to realize that. Maybe some sort of ace something. And this is a very tough spot, by the way. So we got raised. And we know that big blind has also 4-5, right? Suited, albeit suited. But they have also 4-5 suited. It will most likely be their bluff here on this board. Also, what does big blind raise? Big blind also raises ace-5, ace-4. So now they hit the ace and they have like this gut shot. So this card is, and also they have 4 combos of nutted hands that we have like no equity against. This is a it is an overbet on the turn. We call the flop with a lot of ace-x with backdoors. So we have any ace-x of diamonds, clubs, and spades just hits here and can call. I think king 10 when the ace of hearts comes down there is like rainbow. I think king 10 might be thrown into the muck. I might be needing this out. It might be a call. But if it's a call, I don't think it's like this wild, amazing call that, oh my god, you're missing like so much EV by folding. So I'll just click on fold, and that was actually correct. Which kind of, so call, yeah, exactly. Call is minus 0.2, which versus a bet that size and for like a pot that was about to be something like 60 blinds, 0.2 blind is really, really not that big of a mistake. So if you click call, don't worry, because that's really not a big deal. So what can we learn from this? We learned that the flop is actually bet small range, like we had here, 10xx rainbow no straight, 30%, somewhere between 80% and 100%. In real game, you can just simplify to, so when you see like 30%, 80%, you can kind of simplify to, like, maybe you have some hands that really want to check, like on ace high boards, like pocket kings or something like that, right? That don't have like backdoors or whatever. Anyways, do we raise on the flop? No, with like king. The 3-bet. This is what we wanted to really figure out. So first of all, we can look at DTO, and we can look at what is raising on this board and how often actually. You'll see that the raise on 10-3 deuce is actually very often. It's like 22% of range, which I find honestly pretty insane. Also, we can look at if DTO leads. There's no leading. But 22% range is very high and almost never will be executed by your opponents at the tables. But it's important to learn how to play correct and then adapt. So as I said, ace 4, ace 6, ace 3, and ace deuce, probably just calling, right? Ace 5 doesn't exist because big blind 3-bets it pre. So ace 4, yeah? Almost like very, very often, right? So we have some ace 10, of course, the top pair, top kicker. And some of these, like okay, jacks in a certain aspect, 3s and deuces, obviously, pocket 10s. For 10x, I'm actually quite surprised that something like 10-8 or 10-7 would raise here. I just have the 888 client open because there's a tournament that a friend of mine who's a streamer is playing in a little bit, so I'll also kindly play his community. It's called a community free roll and whatnot. Anyways, but 888 is really, I really don't play on it. I'm just there for that tournament, and that's it. Anyways, ace 10, right? Top pair, top kicker can raise. And then as it goes down, it's like almost no raising. Pocket 10, some 10x's, right? That benefit from like taking the pot down like right there, right then and there, versus something like king queen or whatnot. The king 5, you'll see that only with backdoors, right? So king 5 of hearts, no thanks. Because why is king 5? First of all, you benefit from getting folds from like ace x, like ace 7 or something. Is ace 7 folding? Let's see. Yes. So you look at the other range and you figure it out, right? So king 9 is folding, ace 8 is folding. That's why like king 5 suited makes sense as a raise bluff there. And then so it's half the time folding, half the time raising. You can't really call versus that size. But king 5 with the backdoors is very, very fun because imagine how many turns you can actually barrel. An ace, a 4. Even a 5 in some cases, you could probably like also check call a turn with a 5. So you check raise, right? And then you have, if you have like king 5 of diamonds, right? Your backdoors, which are a lot of cards, okay? And also you can barrel, so like any 4, any 6. You can also barrel as a bluff, mostly any 7, because then you can use the king 5 on like a 6 river to blocker bluff versus like a straight or something like that. There's some like hidden reasons there, but they're like harder to understand. So I'm just trying to relay to you very simple information. Also, a lot of raising comes from this lower part, the 6-4, 6-5, 5-4. So the straight draws, right? When the ace hits, 5-4 just completely crushes this. You see that it's almost full raising, so a ton. 5-3, 4-3. So these actually most likely continue on the turn. And sets, right? These are need protection, plus they have a set blocker, which is pretty good. Yeah. So that's about it with like the raising. Those are kind of like the reasons. Um, Also, these hands kind of benefit King Jack, Queen Jack, King Queen. They have continues on overcards, and they have also the benefit of getting some ace X to fold, as we've seen, like a6 to like ace9 was like pure folding. Yeah, ace6 to like ace9, just pure folding, king 9, king 8, etc. Ace Queen off and ace Jack offsuit. That's pretty big, by the way. That's actually pretty big. Okay. All right. So our response is mostly not to repop. We don't really have, like, 1% is like not a lot, really. So we don't actually repop that. We just call. On the turn, DTO overbets. We can also look at what he overbets with, and he's mostly going to be doing it. First of all, you look at the value. You try to understand what's going on, right? It's the sets, the tens, the 5-4, which is complete nuts. The king 5, as you can see, some ace 10, which is so ace 10 is like the lowest threshold actually for overbetting here. These 10s are actually used as like blocker bets mostly. So they're used as like they block pocket 10s and ace 10. That's great. So they're by overbetting them, you're kind of turning. So like the solver is kind of turning them into bluffs, which I can kind of understand. And also like 6-4 has like great equity and like benefits a lot from fold equity. 6-5. And then 5-3 and 4-3 are also gut shots plus blockers that also really benefit from you folding a 10, which was, you saw that king 10 was folding on the turn, which is like pretty amazing. Yeah. So user folds king 10, pretty easy. Calls ace 10, obviously, because it's two pair. Calls a fraction of jack 10, which blocks less bluffs. I'd imagine something like 10-7 would be slightly better in this spot, but I don't. Because it doesn't really interact with like any bluffs, but we don't really have that in our range. So also we have to call 5s and 4s, which is kind of dramatic. Some jacks are folding, some queens are folding, some kings are also, you kind of have to fold. So that's the reason why the overbet with like the 6-4, with like the 5-4-3, you know, you got some equity, but you do get to fold better, and you block nutted hands pretty much. So yeah. That's kind of the whole idea, the whole shebang. This is mostly a very frequent bet. Queen was checking more than betting on the flop, so we don't have a lot of Queen X. This board might be like very frequent C betting. Hold up. So on like Queen and ace, and it's like something like ace queen. It's like 30% to like ranges, right? So it might be that we have like more Queen X. But I think a hand like 5s is very weirdly, oddly, if we keep betting it, we're kind of over bluffing. If you want to like bluff some deuces here or something. So I think that checking and taking this to showdown is perfectly fine. We have like a sort of a middling type of hand. And now we just get bet into for like pot, and I really don't like my hand because we're also blocking. So with a spade, we are also, our opponent had jack 10, by the way. With a spade, we are also blocking bluffs from something like king 5 of spades, something like that, right? So we'll see on the turn that we're actually supposed to be betting a little bit. So on the flop, it's mostly like 85%. On the turn, that queen kind of helps us too a little bit, although I kind of would say that it really helps big blind a lot. So we're not betting that often as frequency. We're checking mostly like 60% of our range, which is pretty big. And we have an overbet. We have a large size. We have mostly a small size that we're actually going to get to use. We also have quads, which is pretty fun, by the way. So why are we using this smaller size? Exactly. Why are we using the bigger size? Why are we using the overbet? The secret is actually in the hands. What hands want to bet small? First of all, super ultra nuts. You can see it here that pocket queens really wants to bet small because you kind of want to keep a 7 in. That's the whole point. Get some more value from a 7. You can get value from like a queen. Sorry, not a queen because you have quads, but from like an ace later, you can bet like whatever amount you think an ace would call, or like a GTO would call an ace. And it starts with something like ace jack. So if you look like lower, it's not this bet size is not happening, right? There's some ace jack in there. There's some pocket aces, some sliver. So mostly just trying to keep a 7 in and not making on like a paired turn. You really, if you're pretty nutted, you really don't want flush draws to fold. So that's also something. With the overbet, let's look at it. It's mostly aces to try to get value from a queen. Ace queen is kind of ish. You can see the bluffs here. They're most likely not spades. Okay, you have like some sort of king 9. But anyways, most likely not spades. Okay, and then you have some pocket jacks that. Sorry, I thought this was the betting. Just some pocket 7s, obviously, which completely like slay here. And then the usual bluffs like king jack, because you block calls, and then you also have like some equity. Yeah, but this is slightly less than I'd have expected from this turn. But also like the 75% is kind of in the same idea. It's mostly just ace king trying to get value from like weaker aces. Mostly you want to get called with like the big size, you want to get called by like an ace. And with the small size, you want to get called by like also the 7 and like all sorts of draws. And then it's like basically like everything, like jack 10 and so on. So we choose the check. And then in the other hand, we can choose probably something like half pot, because I'm very curious. And on the river, obviously, versus this bet size, we're like folding. Let's retry the hand. Like bet. And then bet half pot on the turn. And we didn't get called by like jack 10. I was actually curious if DTO would decide that jack 10 is good enough call. And yeah, that's kind of the whole point versus like half pot. I was gonna try and like figure out versus like half pot. You have like some 7x that actually has to call, pretty much. Like you see like 10-7, like 9-7, like 9-7, 8-7 starts folding. But you do have like some 7x, like 10-7, king 7 that actually have to like keep coming along, and that's why all those nuts are actually in the half pot range. It's like not all of it's like not all of them, but like a lot of them are in the half pot range. Anyways, that's it for episode 1. We'll continue with this SRP in like the second episode, and we'll keep moving with the series to try to talk a lot more. I'm gonna try to focus on the second part on like also turns and rivers and like how they work. And yeah, pretty much. Thank you for watching. Give me some feedback on this method of teaching. But I think you guys are going to enjoy this. I think there's a lot to be taken in. So if you've been very scared of this episode and everything seems like really complicated, don't worry about it. Poker is still like kind of simple-ish in its core. But there's a lot of like nuances that I'm trying to present to you so that you actually have more knowledge and can try to think more deeply about hands, pretty much. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video that will be also about single raise pots in position, low jack versus big blind, or also hijack versus big blind, because they are very, very similar. It's also a tight range versus a very discondensed wide range. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.